Hi there and welcome back to my channel. This is Sean, the Honest Book Reviewer. This video is all about August, my month in review. I'm not going to talk about the number of books I read or genre breakdown. I just want to talk about books I enjoyed the most during the month. Unfortunately in August there were many books I didn't enjoy that much, so that can be a struggle to find the standouts. But fortunately there are enough standouts to talk about in this video. Let's start now. The first is Death of a Nag by MC Beaton, and this is book 11 I think of the Hamish Macbeth series. The thing that stands out for me in this book is it takes Hamish away from his home village. Now I prefer this series when it's set in his home village, and most of this book is set somewhere else. And that setting is so well described. The new characters in this new setting are well described. The mystery is very complex and interesting. And to have all that going on in the book and keep me so engaged, it's very well done indeed. Because I have a huge bias with this series. I really enjoy his home village. I really enjoy that home setting more than anything else in the series. But also in this book we have a very sad moment where a regular character dies. I won't say which character it is, but it's a big moment in the book, a big moment in the series overall in fact, and just a big impact in this book as well. It's a very emotional scene, a lot goes on about that, so it just makes for a good book in my view because I think that whole thing was dealt with very well. So overall this book I think is just perfect. I like everything about it. The characters, the setting, the mystery. Hamish is very good in this book, Hamish being the main character. He's very consistent, very true to himself in this book. I think it's written very well. And this series, these books, are very quick reads. It's a cozy mystery series. It's not a themed cozy mystery. It's a cozy mystery where the main character is a police officer himself. It's more a village cozy mystery, and that's what MC Beaton is known for. She has two main series where it's a village cozy mystery series, Hamish Macbeth, which this book is part of, and Agatha Raisin. From Russia with Love by Ian Fleming, I enjoyed this a lot. It felt so different from the other Bond books so far in the series, and I'm going through the whole Bond series. This book is not about action. Other books in the series up to this book have all been about action, James Bond acting first and thinking later. This book is more about James Bond thinking first and acting later, so it's a very different feel to the whole book. This book is more about suspense and tension, more about psychological tension in nature than anything else. And the big build-up in this book towards the moments where spies from both sides, being Russia and the UK, on the Orient Express, with those scenes that are so gripping and engaging in this small environment, those scenes and that big build-up to those scenes are so well done in this book. The tension, suspense, you just feel it in this book. It's very thick. What I've come to learn about this book is that it has great realism in the spy tradecraft, and that's on both sides of the fence, whether it's Russia or the UK, because all these books, or a lot of these books tend to be about Russia versus the UK, and I think that's because of the whole Cold War element going on at the time these books were written. But anyway, the tradecraft in these books is very realistic, the tension is so thick and so believable, suspense is very good, and the other thing about Bond in this book is that he has doubts about himself. He's not so sure about himself and all the things he's doing in this book. That's different to previous books in the series as well, because in previous books he was so sure of himself and that's where he would act first and think later. But in this book he's thinking more, and you can see doubts in his thoughts. He's not so sure of himself. It makes him feel more real as a character and as a person. He's more well-rounded in this book, and I like that. And I'm hoping that's what happens in future books in this series as well. I want to mention 3 books next, and it's 3 books from the same trilogy called the Three Doors Trilogy, and I read them all in August. It's a YA trilogy, fantasy, skewed towards the younger YA audience, but readers of all ages can enjoy these books. I enjoy them all very much. Here are the books: Golden Door, The Silver Door, and The Other Door. And I found all 3 books at a charity book sale I went to recently, and I paid $1 for each book, so I think that's a great bargain for books that are so enjoyable and so fun. These books, each of them, are just packed with adventure, action. They're quick reads, but they're very good reads. The pace is so well done in these books. The characters are just so vivid characters. I mean, you can picture them all and you believe them all. The settings are just so well described. These books really immerse you into the settings, into the action that's going on in the books as well. I liked everything about these books. I think they're great reads. I think just readers of all ages, if you like fantasy, give them a go. You don't have to like YA fantasy to read these. You don't have to even enjoy YA to read these. You can just enjoy these books for what they are. These books also make me want to read other books the author's have written, because in other reviews for these books, I've seen people talk about little Easter eggs in these books that link back to previous books the author's written, previous series of books as well, also YA fantasy. I'm going to go back and read those books as well to find out what those Easter eggs are. And I hope I do recognise what they are as well, because I just hope those books are just as enjoyable as these books as well. As the title of these books and the whole trilogy suggests, there's 3 magic doors in these books. 1 golden, 1 silver and 1 made of wood. The reason these doors are used is because it's the only means for people in world to go outside into the outer world, find a threat that's threatening their own city and stop that threat. That's the basic concept of this series. And it all centers around a character called Rye, who's a reluctant hero. He's a young character in his teenage years, and he kind of pushes himself into this adventure. So many reluctant heroes don't do that. They're kind of dragged into an adventure or dragged into things, but Rye instigates that himself, and that's different. And I like the reluctant hero trope. I like it very much. One of my favourite tropes in fantasy. And it's written so well in this book, and Rye is such a great character through the whole series. So I do recommend this series very much. Agatha Raisin and the Walkers of Dembley, written by MC Beaton. I enjoyed this book a lot. I enjoyed it because of many reasons. I mean, it's a village mystery. I love village mysteries. I like cozy mysteries. Agatha Raisin is one of my favourite characters of all time in fiction. A great character. I love her in all her books. I like just the whole setting of these books. Not just the setting in her village called Carsley, but the setting wherever she goes in this book as well. Very well done. Also, this book opens up a lot of things about Agatha and another character called James. And James is a character who's Agatha's next door neighbour. And also this guy Agatha has a great crush on. A huge crush. She wants to marry him basically, and she's just waiting for James to propose to her. She's sure it's going to happen at some stage. But in this book, they go undercover together and have to pose as a married couple. And I love seeing them having to live in this small, flatter apartment in this town called Dembley, while they're trying to solve this case. It just brings about so many different things to their personalities you don't see before. And it's very comical to try to see them live in the same environment for so long in this book. Also in this book, we meet Sir Charles Wraith and his butler called Gustav. Both characters are great characters in this book for different reasons. I just love them both. They've got eccentricities. They make a big impact in this book. I like the interactions with Agatha and James in this book. I just like those characters very much. So there's many things in this book that make this a great read. Not only because of Agatha, but Agatha is a big part of why I enjoy this series so much. U is for Undertow, written by Sue Grafton. This is not my favourite Kinsey Malone book in the series, for a couple of reasons. The main reasons are, it has different points of view in the book other than Kinsey, and I'm biased. I like the books that have Kinsey's point of view only. And also this has past and present narrative. And I don't really like that in this series. But I enjoyed the book overall. So despite those things going on with different points of view and past and present narrative that take away from Kinsey in this book, I enjoyed it still. Because the other characters in this book are written very well. Sue Grafton knows how to write great characters, and all the characters in this book feel spot on, from past and present narrative. And they're also varied. We have great differences in characters and all different types of characters in this book. The mystery in this book as well is very complex. It just feels like Sue Grafton took a lot of time to plan out and plot this mystery, and I appreciated that in this book. So even though I didn't like the book so much as other books in this series, I can appreciate still things in this book that make it such an enjoyable read. And I think fans of this series will love this book a lot. I think it's a book for fans only. I don't think this is a book that's going to really make people want to read more of the series. I don't think it's a strong enough book for that, but for me, it's still strong enough to enjoy very much. Last Time I Lied by Riley Sager. It's not my favourite book by this author, but I like this book because of one main reason. This book is split in past and present narrative. Now, I don't like it because of that, because I'm not a huge fan of past and present narrative split in books, but I enjoyed the past narrative very much. Everything about the past narrative was spot on. The characters, the setting, the whole feel, everything about it just felt like that time period, which I think was the 80s in that past narrative, but it all felt so real. Every character felt like they were there and belonged there. I was drawn into that narrative. I felt like I was immersed in that past narrative in this book. And in that past narrative, a lot of the characters are teenagers and they're at a summer camp. And Riley Sager has written those teenagers very well. They feel like teenage characters. They feel so real. And authors sometimes have a challenge, I think, with characters of that age. Sometimes authors are tempted to write kids and teenagers feeling like they're above their years in the way they act, the way they speak, what they think, things they do. Everything about them can sometimes feel like above their years. But in this past narrative in this book, it all feels so real, so natural, so organic. They feel like real teenagers. I think Riley Sager's done a great job with that. Also, with all Riley Sager books, there's twists. Riley Sager is a master at putting twists in his book. And usually he puts twists all the way through the book, not just at the end. Twists in his book are a mixture for me. So there are some great twists, and I think there are some twists that just didn't work. And I think sometimes there are too many twists in the book, but the twists that do work very well. And I enjoy Riley Sager for that. I like the way he shifts the book a bit when he has twists in his book. It can shift the narrative in a different direction, and sometimes they surprise you very much. So I do appreciate Riley Sager for the way he uses those things in his books. So for this book, I really enjoyed it because of that past narrative that just felt like you were in the 80s. It felt so natural and so real. And those twists and turns that worked really well. Because when they do work well for him, they work really well. So now I want to give just a quick shout out to some other books that I think were okay. And I think that some people may enjoy reading them. The first is The Family Game by Catherine Steadman. Now, I think people who like books that go off the rails and a bit bonkers will like this book because it does. It goes off the rails. It's completely bonkers in some moments. It's a thriller, suspenseful, things going on that kind of don't make sense sometimes, over the top many times. But I think if you like that type of book, you'll enjoy this a lot. The Only One Left by Riley Sager. Not my favourite book by this author, but I think a lot of people will enjoy it. I think a lot of people will enjoy the mystery and some of the characters and the setting. Even though the gothic feel wasn't there for me really in this book, I think a lot of people will enjoy this because some of the twists and turns that go on, and there's some great characters in this book as well. The Butterfly Assassin by Finn Longman. I like the cover of this book so much, and the blurb made it sound so interesting. It's got a great concept, and it's the reason why I picked this up and read it. It's not an amazing book. It's a YA kind of sci-fi thrillery type of book, a bit of action as well, but it's not amazing, but I think it's good enough to attract a lot of readers. So if you're a YA fan, I think you have to be a YA fan to really enjoy this book. If you like YA kind of sci-fi action, thriller type, even spy type books, I think you'll enjoy this. T is for Trespass by Sue Grafton. Now, not my favourite Sue Grafton book in the Kinsey Malone series, but good enough to mention. It's got an okay mystery. It's one of those books that are middle of the road for me in this series, but because it's Kinsey Malone, you get her point of view, and her point of view just comes with some great insights, some great colour in the book, some great wit and cynicism that comes on from her inner thoughts in this book. I really like that in this book. So if Kinsey wasn't as strong a character as she was, this book wouldn't have worked. But because of Kinsey as a character, this book is worth mentioning. So there you have my rundown of August. There are other books I haven't mentioned, but all books I read in the month are in the description for this video. On my channel, I review books from all different genres. Check out my channel and subscribe. On the screen now is a link to a video for another book I'm sure you'll enjoy.